Okay, good evening. My name is Alan, and today I'm facilitating the third of four sessions of the D-Sanction. This is a recently published, after a successful Kickstarter game of, as you can see behind me, Elizabethan supernatural espionage by Paul Baldowski. This is a game in which the players, their characters, are heretics who have fallen afoul of the Elizabethan regime for one reason or another, and have been sentenced to hang, burn for heresy, but have been given a second chance. And that second chance is given by Dr. John Dee over there, who has, in an effort to protect Queen Elizabeth, Gloriana, from the foul supernatural, has prevailed upon her to give him the right to recruit said heretics, who have nothing to lose after all, in his battle with the supernatural. That is the setup. We five all played together, so we know we're playing with the safety tools of Lines and Veils, the X card, the Open Door, and we're playing within the Gauntlet Community's code of conduct, because this game, like just about all my online games, I think, is being run as part of the Gauntlet RPG Community's monthly calendar. If you don't know about the Gauntlet, please search Gauntlet-RPG. Find us, come play with us, because we like to think that we run some good games and we play in some great games. So, as I say, my name is Alan. My pronouns are he, him. And let me start by saying, Puckett, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and tell us about Maximilian Schwartz.
Hi there, I am Puckett. I use he, him pronouns. Today I'll be playing Herr Maximilian Schwartz, and I don't understand why I'm here. I am a good Lutheran. I follow the teachings of Martin Luther. I'm an herbalist. I am a doctor. I'm a healer. I am almost a physician. And just the fact that I have an interest in a forbidden text and I happen to belong to an order of druids should mean nothing to anyone. I mean, what business is it of theirs? At any rate, I'm stuck here under penalty of death.
And all you did was visit. I mean, there's just no fairness in the world, is there?
Let me just say that no one should ever travel to the UK for tourism or to find herbs, because it just ends badly.
Yeah, you can end up entirely locked down. Moving along. Paul, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and tell us about Captain Tobias Slater.
Hello, I'm Paul, he, him, and I am playing Tobias Slater, Witch Locator. Also he, him. And Tobias Slater is a very good papist and clearly opposed to Lutheran and Protestantism. But he hid that very well and worked in the court, as well as being a witch locator. And probably his greatest unveiling as a witch was one Maximilian Schwartz. But it was also his downfall. Clearly, Maximilian knew that Tobias was indeed a papist, which also carried a penalty of death. So Tobias finds himself in the same situation as Maximilian, and I don't think either of them are too happy with it. But life goes on. We've got a job to do.
Yeah, and let's not just underplay this. Not just any old Catholic, but a proper member of the Society of Jesus. Jesuits not popular with the Queen, particularly since the Pope gave them permission to kill her. Moving along to another member of the religious. Sabine, say hello. Tell us about your pronouns and tell us about Theophilus Clark.
Hello, I'm Sabine. I use any pronouns. I'm playing Theophilus Clark, who uses he, him pronouns. Theophilus is, he would rather consider himself an Catholic instead of a papist, because he believes that there are too many layers on all these trappings and things. Yeah, that went over very well. He's a friar, a monk, a mendicant, and he was caught. And they said he was a papist, and he said, "I'm not. I believe in the Euro Catholicism." And that didn't go over as well as he thought it would. So yeah, now he's here, and for the last bit, I think he's just hid somewhere when conflict was brewing. Theophilus is not keen on involving himself in anything that could be well, a conflict, really. So
yes, well, we will just touch on what happened to Theophilus when he ran from the manor last time, and therefore avoided the various difficulties that the rest of Dee's agents found themselves doing. Finally, Will, say hello, tell us about your pronouns, and tell us about Titus Frost.
Hi, my name's Will, and my pronouns are he, him, as are those of Titus Frost, a scavenger from Glastonbury who has been inducted into a society that's quite a bit beyond his mental reach, the Octagon Society, a splinter of the Knights Templar, and has become entranced with the theories and legends of the Hollow Hills and the people within. Yeah, is kind of the sanest member of the group from experience so far.
Yeah, I am curious, I must say, because our thousands of viewers can go back and review the last session. But what I'm going to suggest is that when you emerged from where you had been and crossed that ford back into, inverted commas, the normal world, there was Theophilus looking rather concernedly at this farm. Because it's fair to say, Theophilus, that when Dr. Dee checked in using his black amulet as to where you were and how things were going, what did you tell Dr. Dee when you had no idea where the others were?
I told him that God is looking out for his children, and we are all in his hand.
That's a suitably obscure response to Dr. Dee, I think. So I think Dr. Dee will probably go with that. But he did send Mr. Garland to find you and guide you a little further north, and not far further north. You came upon a ford, and what is odd is that as you stood there in the drizzle, contemplating the ford and the farm on the far side, all three of your fellow agents emerged as if from out of thin air as they crossed back towards you. So
you're doing that as well.
Who did you ask about what had happened?
All of them. They're standing there. I can maybe I will make a cross and say, well, then have you become insubstantial and incorporeal?
Max,
figments of my imagination come to torment me.
Max, how do you convince Theophilus that you are not a figment of his imagination?
Please stop this senseless prattle. Let us get home and part ways so that we don't have to see each other again until Dee summons us once more.
Does that sound like a ghostly apparition, or does that sound just like Max Schwartz?
That sounds like the ghostly apparition of Max Schwartz, because he would sound like that. Totally, even if he were a ghost. I will turn to Titus. He seems the most reasonable of the three.
Titus will clasp your hands and say, "Oh, friend Clark, it's good to see you again. I have been most vexed on my own with these two fine gentlemen. But we have found what Dee seeks, I think.
Good.
And yet, perhaps failed to have saved a soul, as he thinks back on the babe that they left with those three women.
Indeed so.
But on the other hand, Mr. Slater didn't get to burn anyone either. So.
And what is Slater's response?
We should have burned the witches and saved the child. It is a poor day for the standard folk. It is a poor day.
I like to imagine that we should have burned the witches, long pause, and saved the child.
Paul, can you maybe change your name to your characters? And
Oh
not
yes,
Peter
Peter
Skellum,
yes.
because I will get confused with that.
That well-known blown agent, dead blown agent, as it happens.
The ghost.
Ghost to Peter Skellum. They are not much clearer than that. Clearly, they have had some strange experience as
Well,
you trudge back towards London.
I do not want to meet witches anyway, so that seems fine. Witches are they're a thing. No. They are the agents of temptation that men should not know.
We will show. I will invite Herr Schwartz to show the wooden relic or whatever it was that we found.
The splinter of wood.
A splinter of wood, yes. Perhaps this. What is this? Do you think? Is it a splinter from the cross? Perhaps.
A splinter from the cross, please. If it were a splinter from the cross, we would all be holy.
What about Theophilus? What do you make of this?
Why do you, who do not believe in relics, carry this, Mr. Herr Schwartz? Please, just
because I found it.
Oh, okay.
While they were mucking about with saving souls and identifying witches, I did the job that will keep our heads attached to our necks.
How very brave of you. May I have a look at it? Maybe I can identify it. I've studied these things actually a bit.
By all means. Here.
It's a splinter of wood about the size of an index finger, I guess.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's been literally just splintered off a piece of larger timber.
Okay. Do you want me to roll quote and verse or just make something up?
I'm curious for you to try. I mean, I think I need to know whether you are trying to work out whether this is from your learning. So is this an intellectual challenge that you are wanting, or is this holy?
No, this is not. I have no idea how to feel if things are holy.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a saint.
Well, I mean,
that is the sin. That my friend, law. Yes, but this holiness and occult, no, that's not the same. Let me just roll with my intellect, yeah.
Okay, and I think I'm not sure quote and verse applies here, so I think you're working with a D8. Let's see how that goes.
Terribly, probably. I've never rolled well in this game before, but it's a 7. Oh my gosh.
I think that your default response to this is that it probably is a splinter of the True Cross.
My default response would be no, splinters of the True Cross are a lot more elaborate.
And
they are relics. They are kept in reliquaries. You don't just throw them around. This could be the splinter of maybe St. Andrew's cross or St. George. I mean, this is a splinter of a cross, sure, but which martyr? Which martyr? Or was it the splinter of the cross of our Lord himself? That is the question.
Well, I mean, what do the other three of you think? Was this sufficiently protected outside a reliquary?
It was in a place that's, it was beyond this mortal realm. Where else would one find such a strange thing as a splinter from the True Cross, as the best day of a man's life?
I hardly think it's a splinter of the True Cross, but it was in a soft place, and perhaps magic's there preserved it outside of a reliquary.
Yes, something is in a soft place indeed, Herr Schwartz.
And I think that probably sets the tone of the trudge back south to London, arguing about which kind of cross this comes from, the degree to which the Jesuit, the Protestant, and the apostate friar can agree on its location and source. And poor Titus, often, as is the case, finding himself in the middle, trying to keep the peace.
Oh no, I'm not out for confrontation. If somebody goes too harshly, I'll just say okay.
Purely an intellectual question.
Yes.
And so trudging back to London, when you approach the outskirts of London towards Islington, I'd have thought, after spending a night on the way back huddled under a hedge, because I don't think you're going to go back to that manor. When you wake the following morning, what do you do, Tobias, when you're under the hedge and you wake and you see a pair of feet attached to legs just standing in your line of sight? What do you do, Tobias?
I think clearly I'd have lowered my hat. So sort of tilt my hat up and slowly raise my head to see the owner of the legs. Hopefully there is one.
There is. It is Mr. Garland. And he said, would you wake your friends, Mr. Slater? I beg your pardon, Captain Slater.
Certainly, unless you want to join us under this hedge.
I will not, though I much appreciate your offer of companionship.
Very well. Gentlemen, we have a guest.
Mr. Garland,
time to raise oneself.
Mr. Garland wonders whether you have been successful. Max, you're still carrying the relic as far as we know.
We found this splinter of wood. It seems to be the cause of the unusual events and phenomena.
Ah, yes. Thank you. And Mr. Garland holds out his hand.
I'll just give it to him because I want rid of this damned thing as soon as possible.
And then he looks around and says, and what of Mr. Kelly's eyelash?
Mr. Kelly's eyelash.
That's what he says.
Believe the owner of the eyelash before we got it.
I fear I may well have lost it, Mr. Garland. It was a most troublesome. I did not know that was part of our mission.
Are you lying to Mr. Garland?
Yes, I am lying to Mr. Garland.
Well, let us test your cunning with your strong intellectual powers. So that's a D4.
I turn out all of my pockets and everything, making it very clear that I'm looking for it, like using my sleight of hand.
Of course.
Yep.
That ups your D6. Your
and
D4 to a D6.
My travel cloak.
I'll give you the benefit of that one. I'm still not certain whether I should be allowing multiple steps, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. That D6 becomes a D8. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Roll off the table, that's what happens. That's a 2, but I'm going to spend my fortune because it seems completely trivial thing to do at the start, but I don't want to piss off Mr. Garland.
Okay, and Mr. Garland kind of looks at you.
I've got an 8.
Okay.
An 8. So.
Mr. Garland looks at you, and that there's that moment when you think you're about, you're being a bit too clever, but you manage to pull it back and just drop it into a fold of your cloak when you come up with your hands empty. Mr. Garland gives you a slightly old-fashioned look, and just smooths his beard and says, "I shall tell the doctor that it has gone astray. And thank you for your efforts. The doctor may be in touch again."
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Garland. It was most fascinating. A world within a world, a day within a day, within a place.
And he looks and it's, well, how very interesting. I shall tell the doctor what you have said to me.
Yes, yes. Wherever if Mr. D needs any of my services, I am always ready.
I'm sure that he will be grateful, and I am sure he will call upon you. And he walks away around the corner in the hedge, leaving you to get on with your lives, it feels like.
Well,
Theophilus, what do you, when someone has a chance to return to their lives, what does that look like for Theophilus? Oh, you are muted.
I know. I was just saying that I always tell myself that I'm muted because I need something to forget if I'm babbling. Yeah, we're back in London, right?
Yes.
And I'm free of these three lovely gentlemen.
It appears that you are allowed to not have to spend the rest of the day with them. Yes.
That is, well, that is a blessing. I will, of course, I will not, of course, run away in unseemly haste or anything, just more like drift away. If the others are going somewhere else, maybe I just won't follow. If somebody tells me that I should come with them, I will, because I'm probably lingering a little just to see what's going on, what's going to happen, and if I can just drift off quietly into the background.
Fine. Tobias, what about you?
I'm going to suggest that we all go to Norwich.
Well, I mean, you've just walked a day and a half towards Norwich and walked a day and a half back.
Well, you know, time's pretty, we got lots of it, but I still don't think we're that welcome in London. I don't really want to be reminded that there is a large pile of wood and some kindling with my name on it.
So you want to head off into the wilds again?
I think laying low in Norwich is a reasonable idea.
Okay, so Tobias' suggestion is that you walk several days back northeast towards Norwich in the hope of finding some respite. Titus, are you impressed by that offer?
I think the road to Norwich holds some, well, unpleasant memories, Sir Slater. Poor Edward and that manor, and I feel it is best not to walk down the same path twice, at least not within the same week as that event. And so I have my own investigations to be about. Dr. D has given us license. Perhaps we should, well, we all have our own interests, as it were. I think I shall be about mine. And he looks through the eyelash in his hands,
Which is spinning slowly in place.
Mm-hmm. But who knows what might come of such a thing?
What's interesting is that it no longer, well, it does, you know, the way that it previously had pointed towards the relic. When Garland walks away and around the corner, it doesn't point in that direction. Max, what about you? I mean, I think you have a little shop somewhere, don't you, in Cheapside?
Why the devil would anyone want to go to Norwich?
So
why would anyone choose to do that? No, I'm actually asking this question of Herr Slater.
I will remind Herr Schwartz that it's one of the most settled university towns in England.
So you think we might find some educated fellows there who perhaps might be less judgmental?
I would have thought so. Definitely from London, yes. It's a far enough distance from London to warrant anybody wanting to go there on a whim.
And I think at this time it may well be England's second city. If not second, it's certainly third.
So your reasoning for wanting to go to Norwich is that no one would want to go to Norwich?
Nobody from court would probably want to go to Norwich. Yes, and we can take an alternate route, Mr. Frost. We could go by Chelmsford and Colchester and Ipswich.
Oh, Mr. Slater, if that's what you propose.
Yes, you know, it's a lovely route through East Anglia.
Then why ever not? I will travel with you for a time.
So that route, I think, if Titus and Tobias, Max, are you convinced?
If the reasoning for going to Norwich is that no one who would want to kill us would go to Norwich, that to me is a sufficient reason to go to Norwich.
So Theophilus, you've been loitering, wondering what's going to happen. They seem to be suggesting that they go a different route, take a more coastal route, which would take, I suppose the way you travel would be out of the city, you'd follow the Thames eastwards, and head out through Essex towards Suffolk and up the coast.
Just as a player, I should go with them, right?
I,
Because by this moment, I don't think that Theophilus. I mean, Theophilus might just trudge behind everybody because that's his tendency to just go where he's blown. But he might just drift away from. Why would he go with these people? Really, they're not very nice or anything.
And when
they haven't asked him, so.
Well, I mean, I think the because he was loitering, and as you've said, he has tended to kind of go with the flow so far. I think there's a kind of tacit assumption that he'll just follow along. Does he follow along?
I don't know. I mean, maybe not.
Okay. So what do we see Theophilus doing then, an hour or two later after they've set off?
I think what he's going to do is what he's been doing before. He's going to set off somewhere else, because London, yes, that's not a good place for a friar. But maybe going okay, maybe York sounds nice.
So up the Great North Road sets off.
Yeah, maybe
Theophilus.
not the Great North Road. Maybe the little
North Road.
North-ish road, right?
Okay. When you've walked, because that will take you north, not far from where you are in Islington, you will find many people traveling north and south. Meanwhile, Titus, Max, and Tobias are following the Thames eastwards. When you've traveled about a mile, Tobias, you seem to know where you're going, so I'm going to assume that you are leading the way, as befits a man of status and quality.
And I have this local travel guide.
You do have a local travel guide that peculiarly seems to operate on any locality.
Indeed.
I think what I want you to do is I want you to meet a supernatural challenge, please, Tobias. That's a D6, unless you've got something that you think would boost it to a D8.
Well, you haven't really told me much about it, so...
Indeed not. So is there anything you have that you think would boost you against the supernatural?
If it's sort of human-based anthropology, maybe?
Okay, so no. So roll a D6 as you are in the lead.
3.
I was going to say, because it always says Paul got a 5, but a 3. Fine. You are conscious of some slight discomfort, but I will come back to that in a moment. Max, I don't think that you would be following directly behind Tobias, because that's not the kind of relations you have. So I'm going to put Titus as the second person to test supernatural Titus. Is there anything that might boost?
I don't know, because I feel like if I say Mr. Kelly's eyelash, I could just use that over and over again for every supernatural thing, couldn't I?
Yeah, but we know what Mr. Kelly's eyelash does, don't we?
Yes, I suppose I don't know what sort of supernatural thing I'm engaging with here.
Right. Well, it isn't a question of trying to find something.
Okay.
Which is what Kelly's eyelash so far has done fictionally.
Cool.
So let's have you simply roll a straightforward supernatural test then.
Okay. That's a 1.
Oh, you are on a roll tonight. Do you see you'd only use the dice roller? So on a 1, would you take a physical blow? Now, I noticed that you are carrying a dark stained leather bracelet, red and cracked. Your wrist is burning.
I yank and pull at it and throw it to the ground.
And there is a scorch mark around your wrist. Max, do you approach Herr Frost when this happens?
I'm going to observe, because there's obviously something unusual occurring, and I don't want to be in its immediate proximity.
Okay. Tobias, I said you felt something uncomfortable. And where do you keep the carved wooden tongue that Mr. D gifted you with? Dr. D, rather.
I think in a leather satchel.
And just hanging at your thigh, kind of. Your hip.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can feel a discomfort in that thigh. It's almost like, you know, an ague.
Well, I clearly don't want my leather satchel damaged, so I will quickly inspect the said satchel.
And it looks fine.
Very well. Have a rummage around.
When you touch the wooden tongue, it's not hot in the sense of burning hot. It isn't kind of setting fire to the stuff in your satchel, but when you touch it, it's like you touched a hot hob.
My tongue is hot.
Your tongue is hot. Theophilus, you're heading north, and you've traveled about a mile, I suppose, north, hoping for some relief in York. Would you also face a supernatural challenge, please?
Sure. What?
I'm going to give you a step up because you do have occult lore. So I think you may be more attuned to this before it happens.
Okay. That's good because otherwise I'd roll a d4. So I'm rolling a d6 now. And it's a 2.
Oh my. Then you two are going to take a hit.
What does that mean?
Well, you'll see that currently, and I suppose I should point this out to Herr Frost as well. You have 3. There's a drop-down box there that now makes both of you on 2.
Okay.
And where do you keep your? It was the icon of Saint Theophilus of Antioch.
I keep it close to my bosom, of course.
Exactly, and that's where you feel this pain.
How? Oh, God is punishing me. I must be doing something wrong.
Titus, you threw this to the ground. What do?
I get my shovel and I pick it up with the blade, and I turn to the others and I say, "It burned me. Have the items that Dr. D gave you had any?"
Mine is merely hot. My
this
tongue
is blasted hot. Your tongue is hot. What about you, Herr Schwartz?
I've noticed nothing. However, in the interest of science, I propose an experiment. Herr Frost, you say that your item burned you.
Mm-hmm.
And Herr Slater, you said that your item felt warm?
Indeed.
Hot. I would go so far as to say hot.
Hot.
The experiment I propose is this. Each of you hold your item in your hand. Herr Slater, I have proposed that you continue to walk north. Herr Frost, I propose that you walk a bit south while I stay here. And we shall see what these devices do, these items. We shall see how they affect us. What say you?
I say I'm not blasted touching that thing again. It burned my skin right off my hand.
Do you want to place it in my satchel? It seems to have offered some protection.
Well, is this Dee's attempt to send us some sort of message?
This may be Dee's attempt to keep us on a leash.
Then I would know which way I'm being pulled.
I think that Max, your early sense of where the Enlightenment will take you in terms of experimentation, I think bears some further intellectual discussion. Let's have an intellectual challenge to see if you can work out what's going on here.
All right, so you'd have me rolling D6, but a step up?
I think a D6, and I'm not seeing a step up unless you can spot it.
Well, you mentioned the Enlightenment.
Yeah, sorry, you are looking ahead. You are, okay, go on, herbalist. Yeah, you've tested stuff. We'll give you early experimental method.
Okay. And let's see what we go with this. That's a 1.
It is a leash. It is absolutely a leash. When you try moving more than about a mile from the edge of London in any direction, this gets hot. It's almost as though it's warning you. Yeah? That is your conclusion, Herr Schwartz.
I will relay that to my comrades.
But why does yours not do it then, Schwartz?
But it does. It's just that I think Max, having watched the rest of you, the other pair of you, he very gingerly moves a few yards in Titus's direction. And it does indeed, as he kind of holds this chiseled, relatively flat obsidian disc with a hole punched in it on a leather string, it does indeed get warm. And when you step back, Titus, towards London, it stops being hot.
If Garland wanted us to stay within London, he could have simply said.
Indeed.
I have half a mind to throw this in the Thames.
Oh, you would throw Dr. D's gift away.
I think I'm about to, and then I remember that this is perhaps all that keeps my head upon my shoulders.
Theophilus, what's your reaction when this appears to provide a boundary almost?
Well, yeah, I will pray because I think God is punishing me for whatever, I don't know, maybe for running away. Yes, that makes sense, for running away. I should have gone to Norwich with these guys, probably. Okay. Yes, my lord, I will do penance. I will go back to London and try to find the others. And then I will.
Fine. So Theophilus, what do we see you a day or two later? What are you doing? The last time I think we found you at play in London, you were preaching rather riskily.
Yeah.
Is that what you do? Is that?
I know I'm looking for the other guys because
right.
that God told me to find them, or
Okay.
Dr. D did. But I think it's a statue of a saint, right? And my name's Saint. So I have not heard from the others that their statue. Probably not in London. I'll probably try to go to Norwich.
Head east.
Maybe I'll. Because I need to. That's what they said, and they said something about Ipswich and things like that. So I'm trying to go there.
Okay, inquiring as you go as to whether anyone has seen them.
Yeah,
okay,
maybe I run across them when they go back, and I go back, and then we can.
Max, where if you are going to treat this as a leash, are you going to try to go past it, or are you going back to London?
I'm going to grumble and return to my herbalism.
And Tobias, you were most keen not to be in London, but it looks like Dr. D is not content for you to be elsewhere.
So I think I will suggest we go to Limehouse, a thorough den of iniquity and a place where we can easily hide within the ruffians of London without being noticed by people of the court.
So Tobias Slater and his fancy hat are heading for the slums. Titus?
I suppose I feel Titus is relatively at home in the slums, frankly.
And that, I think, probably, Theophilus, is where you will find them. That's where you'll track them down to after several days of looking, checking on the Ipswich Road, people saying, oh, I saw a man in a fancy hat. He was with somebody else who was going, ah! And they returned towards London.
I imagine that is the usual reaction to Tobias. So,
Max, about a week later, in your little shop in Cheapside, Mr. Garland visits you again. And Mr. Garland, as he tends to do, he just appears. He, you don't hear the door creak. He's just standing in front of you. And he says, Herr Schwartz, have you heard of something called the book the Book of Dead Names?
I must say, this does not sound familiar.
And he smiles at that. And he says, you will find your fellows in Limehouse. Seek them out and tell them to find a Humphrey Gilbert, who has a book called the Book of Dead Names. Find Mr. Gilbert and retrieve the book for Dr. D.
Retrieve the book. Understood. Mr. Humphrey Gilbert, you say?
Humphrey Gilbert, we believe, is in possession of the Book of Dead Names. And frankly, Mr. Herr Schwartz, it is to your advantage that you know nothing of it.
So find the book, retrieve it, and above all else, do not open or look in it.
I did not say that. I am just relieved that you don't know too much about it.
I think it is in the interests of my head remaining attached to my body that I continue to not know anything about it.
That's a very classic Max response, isn't it? So, Titus, where does Max find you in Limehouse?
I think bartering some items that I have scavenged and selling off for, perhaps I've been training with did they have mudlarkers back then?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, so not doing it himself, but sort of like buying the best off the mudlarkers and then selling it on elsewhere. Maybe, doing sleight of hand with them, with the mudlarking boys, and then phrenologizing some of the most likely looking. You look like a trustworthy man, sir, with your...
Yes, let me feel your skull.
Yes. So yeah, that's where I am, arguing over some shiny glass or something.
And Theophilus, when Titus and Max return from the banks of the Thames, where do they find you and what are you doing, Theophilus?
I have realized that preaching in the street might be a little too forward. So I have figured out that maybe you can go to a tavern and then pretend to be in your cups and argue with people about God.
I like that. I like that. A low, dark tavern. That is, grimy. The ale is thin. The people are coarse. Tobias.
These are the ones who need the word of the Lord the most.
Indeed. Tobias, do we find you in said tavern?
I think who could resist a tavern of any kind? And I definitely think this is a lowly place to lay low.
And that then, Max, is where you can convey your instructions from Dr. D via Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Garland.
That damned Mr. Garland has given us another task.
Maybe it will offer a chance to leave London.
He's asked us to find a book of dead names and retrieve it from a Humphrey Gilbert. Apparently it's to our benefit that we know nothing of it. So, and I look pointedly at Herr Slater, it is not something that we should open or look through or take pages from, even if there are pictures.
Well, I'd have to open it to see if there were pictures.
And we are not going to do that. It is a bad thing for us to know about it.
We should at
So
least
we're just
open it to see
presuming that
if
there
it
could
is
be pictures.
We should at least open it to see if it is the book we are looking for.
Oh, I presume that that object, that artifact, if you will, that Herr Frost has will lead us to it in due time.
You think? I have yet to truly understand how this works.
I thought you had lost it.
Is the eyelash pointing in a specific direction at this time?
I'm afraid that ever since you brought it back to London, Titus, it simply seems to rotate in space, in its spirit So
Yes.
no is the answer to that.
Perhaps its secrets will arrive in time, Herr Schwartz. But Humphrey Gilbert is the man to be found in London.
Well, my knowledge of organisations, does this man stand out?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, that is an interesting question. I think that it's worth you racking your brains to see whether you can come up with the name Humphrey Gilbert. You may have moved in similar circles. So a D4 becomes a D6 because of your knowledge of organisation and organisations.
5.
Okay, Humphrey Gilbert, you know him as, you can't remember if he's a sea captain or whether he was simply the owner of a ship. And you've a recollection of him returning in the not too distant past. But then he's kind of dropped off the social radar. So that's what you know about Humphrey Gilbert at this point. Connection with sea travel, possibly a ship's captain or a ship's owner, and he is he's missing. Hasn't been seen in a while.
One question, have I ever heard of the Book of Dead Names? Because
I
I've
wondered-
occult lore.
I wondered if you were going to ask me that question, Theophilus. I think that you too can dredge through your knowledge of the occult lore, and that's a D8 up to a D10.
Yeah.
There literally is no chance you can fail. Oh no, I did that
Yeah,
last
it's a
time.
2,
and I
of
promised
course.
I would stop doing that.
You cursed it. I mean,
I believe
I rolled,
there's almost no way you can fail.
yeah, unless I rolled a 2, which I did. So, Book of Dead Names, what is
You
that?
did?
You did.
On a D10?
Yes. Yes, I
Holy
did, because
smoke.
somebody said I couldn't fail.
Roll with me hates us today.
If only I'd known how powerful I was. I will no longer curse you. I will try to remember not to curse you
Thank
because I
you.
did promise.
Thank
And I
you.
forgot that I promised. No, at this point doesn't mean anything. It could be if the fiction changes enough, it might jog your memory, but at this point, no. So do we have a suggestion about how we might track down one Humphrey Gilbert?
Well, I know him, don't I?
You know
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 of him.
about him. The name is familiar. You associate him with the sea and ships, but you don't know him personally.
Well, we are in Limehouse, a dock.
Indeed, you are. So
Let us canvass the wharf.
who do we think is best equipped to do that?
I'm very good at talking to people in authority and making them tell me stuff.
I actually think that when it's proposed, that we go talk to people, and Tobias is clearly very confident in his ability to ask questions and get answers in the thing and have tighter circle. Perhaps Mr. Clark might be, a gentle, a soft approach may lead more, and obviously your rod and staffs are maybe closely behind if anything was to go wrong, but Theo may be more amenable to the work.
I think in the interest of keeping a low profile for myself, that is perfectly fine.
Yes, too famous a face around London, of course, Mr. Slater.
Your hats are famed beyond London, Mr. Slater.
As I stroke my beard.
As far as Norwich, he is known. Theophilus, I think that you've been in Limehouse for a week or so now. I think it's not unreasonable that you have become quite well known for your preachifying, and I think probably the dock workers take you with a bit of it's a bit of a giggle, but there's no harm in him. So Theophilus, I see you walking along the wharf, looking
actually,
for. Oh, go on.
I wouldn't talk to the dock workers. I'd talk to the people in the pubs.
Okay,
because I mean, or if there is somebody in, is there a dock authority, some kind of guard or clerk that would oversee things?
Okay, okay. No, I
Because
almost
this
certainly.
person was supposed to be a captain or a ship owner, so he might know somebody who's actually in sort of authority.
That's a very good point.
Harbor master, if they have that.
If there
here.
isn't a harbour master in Limehouse, there is now.
Oh wow.
And I think that rather than the harbour master, who is quite high up the social hierarchy locally, I think a clerk or an apprentice who spends time in some of the taverns of Limehouse, I think you would seek out that apprentice or clerk. And what approach do we see you take?
Oh, I will first I will flatter him and tell him how famed his knowledge and the lore of the local populace is, and that I have been told that there is no finer person to ask for Humphrey Gilbert.
And shining your star of Artemis as you go. I think that is an intellectual challenge to tease things out of young Arthur, the clerk. So a D8 becomes a D10.
Nice. Don't say it. It's a 9. You didn't say it. It's a 9.
There you go. You see, there you go.
Thank
and
you.
Arthur says, "Oh, Mr. Gilbert, yes, yes, he did have a ship, but as I understand it, he sold the ship and has retired from the sea to his house in Deptford."
Deptford.
And Arthur says, "On the other side of the river, a few miles to the east."
Oh, I know where it is. I just don't know how to spell it. Otherwise, I would have written it into the chat. Okay, Deptford. Okay, cool. Yes, we will go there. And thank you, my fine young sir. You are, as has been told, you are a shining light of knowledge, a beacon of wisdom in these dark times.
And I think I'm seeing the four of you in a little kind of waterman's barge being rowed across the river towards Deptford docks, a little bit downstream and across the river. And while the docks are, when you clamber up the stone steps to the dock at Deptford, I think that it's bustling, it's busy, but if you make inquiries, Deptford village is a little way away, and that's where people live. There's really not a lot at Deptford docks apart from docks. Or do you want to make some inquiries? Max, what do we see of you at this point?
You see me sitting on a bench in the boat, wrapped in a cloak, exactly, hunched forward, grumbling. My joints ache with the damp weather. And particularly having to cross a river to go find this.
I think this is the right time at this point, because we do need to help our viewers conceive of Max Schwartz. Max is a pretty miserable individual, as we see from this shot.
If there is joy in this world, I have not found it.
And any suggestion that someone could provide it is simply guffawed at.
What a ludicrous idea.
Titus, what about you?
My God.
Well, Deptford is a small place, like you just outlined. So, is there some sort of any kind of common place, like a tavern, like an ale house, or that kind of thing?
Yes, I mean, nobody much lives at Deptford docks, but plenty of dockers drink at Deptford docks. So I think there's probably a tavern or two. So what approach do we see you taking, Titus, when you spot the tavern?
Well, let us ask in there for Mr. Gilbert. Mr. Slater, first round's on you.
Certainly. Yes, south of the river, but keep our wits about us. We are closer here to the continent, and you know what that means. So yes, first round on me.
And Tobias, do we see you making inquiries about Humphrey Gilbert?
Yes, with the stevedores at the bar, and maybe the barman himself.
Let's have you roll an intellectual task then to cunningly squeeze from them the information you seek.
That will be a.
But I will give you a D6 because you have anthropology. You understand how these people operate.
How the simple folk of the docks operate.
Indeed so. Indeed so.
4.
Right.
Success.
Success. And the one of the stevedores will say, "Oh, Joseph, the barkeep there, he might know. He's, you know, we just crossed the river to work at the docks, but Joseph may know." And Joseph does know. He knows that Humphrey Gilbert bought Gravel House a year or two ago, which would fit, Tobias, with your recollection of when he kind of dropped off the social radar. So yeah, a couple of years ago, he bought Gravel House on the far edge of Deptford Village.
Well, I will return to the table with drinks and knowledge of Gravel House, and say that is where we can find the owner of the book, I presume.
I've just noticed the time, so I think this is an ideal time for a short break. Is 6 minutes long enough? Fine, back here at 10 past the hour then. So yes, house on the edge of Deptford Village. And I think the barman will also tell you, Tobias, that the house has a caretaker called Edgar Bull, who lives at this side of the village. What do we do? Theophilus, what are you thinking at this point?
I dropped what? What did we find out? I'm sorry.
That Humphrey Gilbert owns a largish house on the far side of the village, but there is a caretaker for the house, because what the barman confides, Tobias, is that while people know that Mr. Gilbert bought the house and he and his servant Clement live there, he doesn't do, you know, he's not seen about. Everything goes through Edgar Bull, the caretaker, and Theophilus, Edgar lives in a small house at this side of the village.
Well, I mean, I could go and talk to him, chat him up, see what's what. If he drops some morsel of information that we could use. We are, and I'm looking nervously at Tobias. We are not averse to stealth if that should be necessary, right?
Exactly. So finding out whether the owner is in residence, I would say, would be a grand plan, and also making sure that the caretaker is not in the property. So I think that's a grand idea.
So Theophilus, off you set to find a modest house, but it looks like whatever else he does, he seems to be paid reasonably well. It's not a hovel. So what do we see you banging on the door? What about the rest of you? Do you go with Theophilus, or do you let Theophilus go over and do this schmoozing on his own? Titus, what are you thinking?
I think that Titus will accompany Theophilus, if Theophilus will have him.
Max, what about you?
Theophilus is much more social than I am.
So what, are you going to loiter at a distance?
That I'm going to observe from a distance.
Okay.
Should anything go awry.
Fair enough. Tobias, what about you? Are you with Max, observing from a distance?
I was going to go to Gravel House itself and observe that.
Okay, right. Well, we'll come to you in a moment then at Gravel House. So Theophilus, we see you kind of banging on the door.
I'm muted. I'm not muted
I was
anymore.
waiting for you to tell yourself, so I didn't have to.
Yes.
I knew you would.
I do. I always do. Let's see. Okay, yeah. I think I will go there. And actually, yes, I will knock on the door.
And you know, there's a pause, and a portly, rather run-down looking man comes to the door, and he's slightly hunched, and he peers at you. I mean, I don't think of Theophilus as being a big man, so he's not peering up at you, he's peering out at you. And he says, yes, what kind of-"
Theophilus is not a small man. He makes himself seem smaller. Like,
okay.
but yeah, but okay. He will smile quite friendly and say, "Good day to you, sir. This is a fine house, and I wonder, as you are obviously the proprietor of this, the owner of this fine building, you might know your way around these parts. Can you?"
Are you begging?
No, sir. No, of course not. Not unless you consider the wish to obtain some knowledge of local parts. Begging. I am
And he
looking.
looks you up and down, because you're still dressed as a friar,
Yeah,
aren't you?
I am. Yes, yes.
And you look like them monks that wander about begging after
Yes.
the old king put you out.
Well, that was unfortunate, but you know, a new time, a new day, and I'm looking for the way to the ocean to maybe speak with God and find my new calling. And speaking of the ocean, I heard that a shipman is living in these parts. Humphrey Gilbert, the one he once was a captain.
Looks like Titus was about to intervene then.
Yes. Well, I at the name of mention of Humphrey Gilbert, Titus will lean forward with his shovel and his a bright smile on his face and say, "Yes, we come not begging just for information, sir, but for work. I've been appointed scavenger to these parts and we are here to make good for the owner of Gravel House and for yourself, sir."
Theophilus, let's see how your flattery has gone, shall we? An intellectual challenge. I think flattery counts, so that's a D10.
Yes. Come on, D10. Be nice. Nope. It's cursed once more. It's a 2.
Well, then experimentally, that proves it's not me.
Yeah.
So
obviously it's
on
me.
a 2, he says, away with you, beggar. Let's see, Titus, whether the offer of work convinces him that you may be worth employing in some way. So again, an intellectual challenge.
Yes, with my shovel to show that I am a hard-working man of.
Shovel counts.
Yeah.
So D4 becomes D6.
And I roll a 3.
And he says, "Well, I can't pay you."
Well, it is, as my friend here says, God's work, sir. I am being paid for by commission, of course.
Let's cut to Tobias Slater as you look around this substantial Elizabethan stone house, gravel house on the edge of the village. Tobias, are you what are we seeing?
I think a casual walk round the house. Yeah, so trying to get an idea of. I mean, is it fenced, walled?
No, there is a garden. The garden is overgrown and clearly badly kept. There is no smoke coming from the chimneys. So that's your cursory look around. Do you want to go into the garden and get closer to the house?
I mean, it's a house. I can observe it from the road. So I think plonk myself down opposite the house and observe.
Okay. I'm seeing this as an intellect, trying to draw some conclusions about it based on your acuity, your mental acuity, your observational skills. So I think that's an intellectual challenge. But I'm struggling to see much that helps.
Well, I think my knowledge of infiltration.
Well, that's why I asked if you wanted to get in closer to the house, to be honest.
I think any good infiltrator will try and observe first
Okay,
to
go
see
on. I'll
signs of
give you that.
habitation.
Let's treat this as casing the joint, shall we?
Yes. D6 then.
Yes.
Is a 4.
I have to say it gives every appearance of being deserted.
Well, then I think a further approach to infiltrate the house.
So, meanwhile, I think that he's thinking maybe is Edgar Bull, maybe there's a chance to get this fool to do some work for me. And he says, "Is the beggar with you?"
Yes. My ward, my guide in so many ways, though, of course.
And he says, "Well, I suppose you could have a go at the garden. Come with me." And he marches off through the village towards Gravel House, the direction which you know Tobias has gone. Max, what are you going to do?
Remind me, why are we at this house again?
We're at Edgar Bull's house because he is the caretaker of Gravel House. And Gravel House is where Tobias is about to sneak into the garden, I think.
So the caretaker has gone off around the corner?
Yes, he's headed off towards the house.
Is the front door open?
There was no sign of anyone inside. And I guess that these are not doors that lock, particularly. I think they probably bolt from the inside. And he's, it's Deptford Village. Everybody knows Edgar Bull. No one's going to rob him. What do you do, Max?
I'm going to see what's inside.
Okay. You go inside and you will find, well, let's see what you find, shall we?
Sure.
I think that this is intellectual, not physical. I don't think you're ransacking the place, or are you?
Heavens, no. I'm going in for a quick look to see if there's anything that seems unearthly, uncanny, supernatural.
Oh, do you want to make this?
Do
you want to make this a supernatural test?
Well, if there's any information about the Gravel House or where the book might be, I'm totally okay with rolling supernatural, considering that's better than my intellectual skills.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to tease out here is, are you looking for mundane things, or are you looking for supernatural things?
I'm looking primarily for things that John Dee would want to not be out in the public.
Which sounds like supernatural to me.
Yes.
Okay, so let's have you roll D8. I think I'm prepared to have you invoke your folklore for this, because you are out in the relative countryside. Let's go with that then.
All right, so that's a D10.
And I say nothing.
Thank you for continuing to engage in this experiment. And somehow that's a 2.
That's when you discover that his wife is at home, but was simply snoozing. And she wakes and says, "Who are you?"
I'm an herbalist. I'm here because there's Herr Gilbert has a condition. I was merely trying to find how to get to the manor.
Yeah, and so you just came into someone's home. Let's see if that's at all convincing to Mrs. Bull on a D6 for intellectual.
Okay, can I use, since I am referring to herbalism, can I use my herbalism skill here?
I to be honest, I think if you can get her on side, then you will have time to start explaining. But at the moment, she looks like she's about to scream blue murder. So I don't think you've got time to engage in but I'm a herbalist and I know all of these things.
That's a 3.
That's a 3. Okay, let me just, let me see. Because I have a reaction table here I keep forgetting about. 9. She rushes at you, wielding her chamber pot. What do? She is not a happy woman.
I quickly back away.
Back away at pace?
At pace?
you know, are you running?
I am quickly backing away, yes.
Max is too dignified to run. He just walks quickly. And I think you succeeded. So she isn't going to kind of call for help, but she is going to see you off the premises because I rolled a 9. Her reaction is rob, deprive, subdue, or hinder. So I think she is intending to kind of hit you over the head with her chamber pot and then bind you until her husband gets back. But if you retire, I don't think she'll pursue you.
I am backing away at speed.
Okay. And she shakes her finger. And don't you come back.
But this is for Mr. Gilbert.
She's far too far up the reaction scale for that to work. Tobias, infiltrating the garden, getting close to the house, yes? It gives every appearance of being deserted, so I'm going to let you get up to the house. What do you want to do when you get to the house?
Well, once you've got that far, you really need to enter the house. Is there a like a coal bunker entrance?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. I don't think coal will be the natural fuel here. I think it's probably wood burning. So you're going to look around. I think you're faced with a ground floor window.
Or a door.
Or the front door or the back door. So what's your choice?
Well, I think the back door is always a nice covert method to enter a property.
Okay, then let's have you roll to break in then with infiltration, I think. I think this is a physical task because it's as much about breaking the lock as picking it, to be honest.
Yep. So D10.
There you go then.
A 9.
With a 9, you don't even break it. You just force it. Yeah. And you're inside. Theophilus and Titus, you are coming to Gravel House with Mr. Bull. And Bull says, go on then, set to work, clear the garden.
Oh, is this this is I think I heard one of the men say this is Gravel House, right?
Yes, what business of that is yours?
Oh, I was just, is this your house, sir?
And he kind of, as if to say, do you think that I am lack-witted?
No, sir, I mean, where's the master for such a fine house to go to such squalor?
We would not want him to set his dogs upon us if we were to.
Oh, he's not here. I'm just looking after the place. I don't know where he's gone, him and his servant.
Oh, he has another man.
Yeah, his man's called Clement. I don't know if that's his first name or his second name, but Mr. Gilbert just calls him Clement.
Oh, and they're not, neither are here.
Name, though.
Clement.
Theophilus, say that again.
Oh, fortuitous name then, Clement.
Titus, what were you going to say?
Just to confirm that neither of them are here. They are both away.
No, do you think I'd let you here working in the garden if the gentleman was at home?
Oh, well,
what kind of caretaker do you think I am?
Well, you are true, sir. True. Well, we let us to work, and we will make. You will be able to write. Give the good word to my friend here, and it will open the doors of heaven to us, but to us all. Indeed, I'm just acting the fool, and I'm keeping an eye out for. So it's overgrown, right? And it's an Elizabethan house. Is there perhaps like a place where there's like overgrown ivy going up one wall or something towards a second floor window?
I'm very happy for there to be ivy going up one wall. Max, are you going to follow where Mr. Bull took Titus and Theophilus, or are you, do you walk briskly away in that direction?
I think I'm going to walk away in the direction of Herr Slater.
Fine.
All the better to not run into the husband.
Well, the chances are you will run into the husband because there will be this kind of short, stocky bloke trudging back from Gravel House. that you know is Edgar Bull because you saw them talking to him. But wife is not behind you, so you've got some time before he gets back to her, and she says, "There was a man. There was a man."
In that case, I'll look like I'm moving on. I'll
Fine.
walk in a direction away from the
Quick,
problem.
quick word. Can we excard the use of this high voice for women? It doesn't
Okay.
really.
Okay, sorry,
It's-
I
it
dropped
sounds
into Monty
really weird.
Python. I dropped into Monty Python.
Yes, thank you.
My apologies. He breezes past you. You make to look as though you're walking out the far side of the village, but you will see Theophilus and Titus, kind of standing in the garden looking up at the house. What do you do, Max? Do you scoot into the garden before Mr. Bull meets his wife?
Why not? I assume Herr Frost and Herr Clark have developed something at least adjacent to a plan if they're standing there.
Okay. Tobias, you've gone into the back door and you're seeing furniture covered in dust sheets. The house gives every appearance of having been shut up. What do you do, Tobias?
Well, I think a library is the best place to look for a book. So
And head for the library.
case the rooms for any kind of bookcases, a library, that sort of thing.
And yes.
Signs of witchcraft.
Oh,
You never know where it hides.
you never know. You never know. I think you'll make your way into the library, and through the front window, you will see Titus and Theophilus looking up at the side of the building, shortly joined by Herr Schwartz. Do you want to let them know you're inside, or do you want to just search the library, or at least look through the library?
There is a chance that the caretaker could see me if I let it be known
Oh,
to the other.
Caretaker's gone.
Oh,
he's gone
yes,
back home.
I will wave my hand at the three.
I think
And maybe go to the front door.
as Titus is like peering, like, right, where's the best way to break into this building? And then his eyes trace down, and there's just Tobias there going,
looking out through one of those diamond-shaped panes
Yeah.
of glass. The front door is securely locked with a
What if-
key lock.
I would have gone to the back door anyway because front door seems not like our best option, and back doors are usually don't have locks because locks are expensive as hell.
Okay, so to the back door, where Tobias will meet you. All three of you, all four of you are inside. This is a large. Pardon me. No. Pardon me. I knew it was going to happen.
It's you.
The interior is just dust sheets over all the furniture. There are dust sheets pinned up over various bookshelves, but a quick look determines these bookshelves. There are lots of books here. Most of them, I think, Tobias, it's fair to say, are of a nautical nature. Texts on navigation, ships' logs, atlases. You could spend days going through this library. That's your first look, Tobias. Max, what do you do when you get inside the house?
Well, we're looking for the Book of Dead Names. But
Yes.
it strikes me that this is something that someone probably wouldn't leave behind if they were away. So I'll start looking for signs of where they might have gone.
Okay. What about you, Theophilus?
Book of their names, right? I mean, I would naturally. How old is this house? Was this house already had this house been built before they said we don't want the Pope to have any influence anymore?
That's a good question. I think it predates that. Yes.
So there would be a chapel.
I think it's a big house, but it's not a grand house.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's a kind of gentleman's house who would go to church rather than have a church, so to speak.
Okay. Then
Not as
there's-
grand as that manor house you came to on the Norwich Road.
Yeah, okay. Then I don't have to look for a chapel or anything like that. Okay, if I were the Book of Dead Names, where would I hide? I mean, the library is the obvious choice, and I would like to go and see the library, but I know myself, and the library to me is a temptation, and I should avoid temptation, so I'm not going to the library. I'm going to the master's bedroom because, I mean, that seems also sometimes in the master's bedrooms you find little knickknacks and stuff like that that really shouldn't lie around. You know?
Okay, so Theophilus is searching upstairs.
Yes.
Titus, what about you?
I mean, I will search the house for this book for any hiding place, and I may turn to
I
the
suppose
eyelash.
I want some idea whether you're going searching upstairs on the ground floor, or are you going upstairs to the first floor, or indeed into an attic?
I think I'll go to the attic. No one's going there yet, are they? So
No.
yeah, I'll
So
go to
I've
the
got
attic.
Titus in the attic, Theophilus up on the first floor, Tobias is still interested in the library to one side at the front of the house. Max, I can't remember where I placed you.
I don't think you actually did.
Then let's work out where you are.
Well, we've got the attic covered, we have the first floor covered, and we have the basement covered.
No, nobody's looked for a downstairs at all.
Okay, so that's right. That's the library. Is the attic the second floor, or is the attic a third floor?
That depends which side of the Atlantic we're counting. So there's the ground floor.
Mm-hmm.
The floor above that is the first floor, and the attic is above that.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying. We have the first floor covered, we have the attic covered, we have the library covered. I'll take the rest of the ground floor.
Okay. So Tobias, the temptation here is to simply start tearing pictures out of books.
I think so, yes.
Is that a temptation you want to give into?
I think it is, yes.
Fine.
Because clearly, if I can find some more symbology in this big collection of books, it could possibly lead me to further understandings.
Indeed. And the clue to where the Book of Dead Names is clearly hidden in the symbology that you already hold and what you could find in here. So I'm seeing Tobias taking books at random off shelves, flicking through them, looking for pictures, tearing it out, putting on a table, a dust sheet covered table. Fine. This is the front of the house. This is the window where you saw the others. Let's go to the bedroom floor. Theophilus, you start at the grandest room and you begin to search, yes?
Yes.
Looking for books, presumably.
Looking for the Book of Dead Names, yes. I
Okay.
assume that this is an actual book and not something totally different.
Oh, that's a very good point. You're working on that assumption at this point,
Yes,
so it's a
yes.
reasonable one. I suppose that if this is an occult book, it is conceivable that you could contemplate, where would you hide an occult book?
Where would I hide an occult book? I would hide it.
Because you've got occult lore.
I would
haven't you?
hide it. I would hide it closer to the heaven and closer to my head, because the head is the seat of the intellectus, and from the heavens comes the grace of God. So that is where I start looking.
Fine. So you're starting at the headboard of the bed and working out.
Yeah.
Let's have you. I think that this is the way you're approaching this is an intellectual challenge, isn't it?
Yes.
And you are
Definitely.
using your occult lore to guide your
Yes.
steps.
Yes.
And if I was hiding an occult book, this
Mhm.
is where I'd start. Go ahead.
Yes.
Let's have you roll that D10, and I will say not a word.
Okay. Why am I always rolling these D10s? Maybe I should just roll something else. It's another 2.
You might say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why this. You know what? I start rolling D6s now instead of D10s because I did that at the weekend, and that was a bad thing. But
Well, I think perhaps you need to
Yeah.
start shifting furniture next. Because I think I'm going to give you a condition called frustrated.
yes, fair
Because
enough.
despite the obvious logical place to hide an
Mhm.
occult book,
Mhm.
is this man some sort of fool?
Yeah.
So your consequence is frustrated. Titus,
Okay.
let's come to you up in the attic.
Mhm.
The rooms up here are deserted and empty, apart from one, which is a small, clearly a small, and until it was the servant's room, is your suggestion, your inclination to say.
This Mr. Clements, perhaps.
Indeed. But again, dust sheets, nothing much to show. What approach to searching are you taking?
I am seeing if there are any. I'm looking in potential hiding places. Loose floorboards, that kind of thing. Using my scavenging ability, I would say, to try and.
I think that's
You
very
know?
legitimate. I'm inclined to say that are you trying to work out where the floor where you would hide it, or are you just prizing up floorboards?
I mean, I think it is prizing up floorboards essentially. It's not like I'm doing every single one of them, but like the way of checking is that a bit loose? Yeah,
Fine.
like
Using your shovel to lever it up.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, a physical task, but I think scavenging counts, so you can
Okay.
have a D8, I think.
But does my shovel count?
I think I'm giving you too many. I think you have to
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
one
Well,
thing.
I rolled a 1 anyways.
Oh, right. I'm going to give you the consequence bad back,
Mm-hmm.
because it looked loose, but my goodness me, it wasn't. And the smaller the back. Let's go to Max. You're searching the rest of the ground floor because whatever Tobias is doing in that library, it's taking him a long time. So what do we see you doing, Max? How does this search proceed?
I'm rifling through any kind of paperwork that I see, and to end letters, invoices, bills, anything of the sort, to get an idea of where he might have gone.
Okay, so you're working way room to room, really.
Yes.
And as I say, all the furniture is all covered in dust sheets. There is a layer of dust on this, suggesting it has not been disturbed in some time.
Mhm.
Months, I would have thought. And you go from room to room. You will find a study and a desk covered with dust sheets. You open the drawers in the desk. You don't find any papers. So, you're working way from those kind of large rooms, the rooms that are obvious, and you end up in the kitchen. Because that's the only place that's left. I think by now, probably, the better part of an hour or two have passed with you searching the house.
Mhm.
It's getting on towards dusk, perhaps. And I'm curious, Tobias, oh, there's a good picture. I'll have that one. And you've got quite a stack of these now piling up. Do you want to do anything with them?
Yes, I'm thinking, looking at all this symbology, could this point me in the direction of the Book of the Dead?
I think that's a supernatural interpretation.
I think it is.
We know, and I think you have this increasing large pile of paper with pictures on, which gives you a step up.
So the D6 now becomes a D8.
It does.
But I got a 1.
And you are convinced that this is in the attic, because the pictures it's how do you interpret these things? Do you close your eyes and throw them down and see what pattern they form? Do you shuffle them and pick one out at random and see?
Yes, I think sort of geometrics. So I think sort of drop them on the floor, and there should be some sign in the symbology.
And I think that what comes up on top is a triangle, which makes you think of a roof.
To the attic.
So Tobias charges upstairs to the attic to find Titus kind of hobbling about, still trying to prise up these bloody floorboards. Theophilus, you've worked your way from the master bedroom through the other bedrooms to no avail. To no avail.
Have I found anything besides the Book of Dead Names that is at least kind of valuable?
Valuable.
I mean,
Oh, I was looking for the Book of the Dead Names. And I found this rather attractive gentleman's hairbrush set.
Fell into my pocket.
I had a gentleman's hairbrush set.
Cool.
There's also a chamber pot, but I'm assuming you're not interested in that particularly.
Not very much, no.
Max, let's have, because I don't think I've actually had you roll to search. So let's have you roll to search. I think this sounds like an intellectual exercise you're embarked upon.
Yes.
So let's have you roll to search. Is there anything that you are carrying or that you know that might help? Oh, a short staff, I notice. Do you start tapping things?
Yeah, I mean, at least the
boop,
floorboards,
boop,
you know, see if
boop,
there's
boop.
any hidden drawers on this desk.
Yeah. So I think that increases your intellectual from a D6 to a D8.
I thought my intellect, isn't my intellectual a D8? Oh, my supernatural is a D8. Okay, so yeah, I'm rolling D8. That's a 2.
I think that you're working your way across the kitchen floor, tap, 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 tap. And there's an alcove. And that alcove, you tap, 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 and it gives way underneath you. And you fall through the kitchen floor into a cellar below. I'm going to give you a consequence that is bruised.
All righty.
And I think that, you know, a gentleman of your age falling 8 or so feet, I think that there's a kind of and I think the rest of you will hear that shout from downstairs. Theophilus, you're closest. What do you do when you hear that?
I stop picking up stuff, make a guilty face, and then realize that this probably was not somebody accusing me of theft or anything such godly men like me would never do. But instead that this was maybe somebody falling or getting attacked. So I will go and have a look. Okay. I mean, careful enough that I don't trip over the same thing they did and won't be attacked by the same thing they were, but quick enough that I would be there if they needed help.
Fine. So you make your way downstairs, heading to where you thought you heard the cry come from. Titus and Tobias, you're in the attic. Tobias, you've just got up here and are convinced you're here to find Titus and a number of raised floorboards with nothing to show for it.
And I think Titus straining against that one that's like rent, and as Tobias goes up, he's like, oof, well, I don't think there's anything up here, Slater.
And that's when you hear the cry.
Quick, hold hard, man. Downstairs.
Race downstairs. As you're going down this central staircase, Tobias, you will notice, because there's a large window on the first floor that gives light onto the landing. And as you come down the stairs, you're facing that, and you can see out of the front window a group of cloaked figures.
Quick, Tobias.
Quick, Titus,
Mr. Fro-
perhaps.
Yeah, Titus. There's people approaching.
I won't make you roll for this, but I think it's fair to say that there are perhaps a dozen cloaked figures who have Tobias, you've got infiltration. They look like they are surreptitiously coming in to the garden. The house is clearly their objective.
They don't look like a lot of coven of witches, do they?
No, they look like a coven of soldiers. They have that
something must have been given away when you got here, Mr. Frost.
Should we have had tradecraft for this?
Well, that is very true. Mr. Garland would have offered you tradecraft. Thank you for reminding me. Do you want to? Well, let's see how this bit plays out, and then you can choose. Theophilus, you follow. You work your way through the ground floor. You get to the kitchen, where there is a hole in the floorboards. There is actually a ladder at the other side of the room that goes down, and a trap door. But sadly, Max has fallen through the other side down into the cellar, and you can see him down there struggling to his feet. It's only about 6 or 8 feet down, struggling to his feet and looking a bit discomforted. What do you do, Theophilus?
Point to the ladder and say, Mr. Schwartz, we use ladders in England to get to the ground floor.
But interestingly, Herr Schwartz, as well as that very short ladder up, there is a trap door in the cellar that presumably goes down.
Ooh.
Let me cut back to the first floor landing. Tobias, you will see this dozen men spread out through the garden, forming a ring approaching the front. One of them clearly is in charge and heading for the front door.
I would like to call on the favor of the angels.
Go ahead.
To summon a purple toxic cloud in the garden.
Okay.
To disperse these individuals.
Mark that. And so what does this look like? Does it emanate from the door or does it emanate from the garden? Because the guy is coming to the door. They've crossed the garden pretty much now.
Yeah, I think from under the door. It sort of rolls out from under the door.
And that will certainly scatter them back. I think the truth is that you have delayed them. I don't know if you've frightened them back across the river or wherever they come from, but you've bought time with that, certainly. What do you want to do with that time, Tobias?
Quick, Mr. Frost. Find the others. We are surrounded. We must either hide or retreat.
We need the book. They must be here for the book, Mr. Slater.
I don't think I could hold them much longer.
And I think that we can hear one of the people outside say, witchcraft.
Well, far be it for me to open that box with Tobias Slater. But are you going to stay up here on the landing, or are you going to head down to the ground floor?
I will run down to the basement to see if I can get the others.
And I think, it won't take you a moment to find Theophilus in the kitchen. Tobias, do you follow Titus?
No, I think I'm going to try and so the front door was locked.
Yes, securely locked.
I think I'm going to try and secure the rear. I may say it, Mr. Frost, we could put a large dresser in front of the door.
Right, yeah. If rather than run down, we'll try and blockade like a window or the doors and stuff, barricade things in.
Okay, so the logical thing to do now, if you want this to appear to be continuing to be deserted, I think the logical thing is to try to make sure they can't get in the back door either.
Yeah.
If you start moving furniture against the windows, they're likely to twig that someone is at home.
Yeah,
so I just need to be clear what your intention is.
And that's the kitchen door, is it?
Yes, it is the kitchen door.
And there is water in the kitchen, isn't there?
There's probably a well out the back.
No water held in the kitchen?
I don't think so. Not having been deserted or empty this long. Max, there is, as Theophilus has pointed out, a set of steps back up into the kitchen from this storage cellar, but there is also a trap door at the other side of the cellar that goes down. What are you going to do?
Damn the steps. I'm going deeper in.
So you, with your frail old body, bruised as it is, pull up the trap door and you will see disappearing down into the darkness. There are metal rungs hammered into the wall and it goes down out of sight. I think that's the point, Theophilus, at which you're looking at Max through the hole in the floor do this. And Tobias and Titus have arrived and are trying to move the dresser against the back door.
I will go down. I mean, I see this, right? That it goes down. I have candles.
Aha!
I have candles, so I will light one.
We won't comment about whether they were stolen off some altar somewhere, but certainly
They
you
were a
have-
gift of God.
They were a gift of God. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed, they were a gift of God. And so, Theophilus, you can see down into the depths. It goes dark, but if you light a candle, you would be, and worked your way down, you'll be able to see further. I'm not going to make Tobias and Titus roll to shift a dresser. You didn't break the lock, Tobias. You rolled well enough, I think, to have forced the lock, not broken it. So you can again, put the latch across and then move the dresser up against the wall to secure it. So certainly it will be a significant obstacle if someone tries to break in that way. Yeah. They could come through the windows, but again, remember that these windows are for the most part solidly framed, small panes. So they'd have to make a hell of a mess of a window to come in through it. So Max, you're looking down into this shaft running down into the earth. Theophilus has arrived with a candle alongside you. Tobias, Titus, what are you going to do?
Has this bought us enough time, Mr. Frost?
I suppose it has bought us all the time it will. I bend down to the Mr. Clark, Mr. Schwartz. Have you found it yet?
You found a passage that leads down.
A
Well,
hollowness in
Schwartz did.
a hollow space beneath this hill. I must see. And I follow it down.
So
Did you say it was like metal railings going down?
Yes, rungs are set into the wall of this shaft.
Wouldn't
That
it be
goes-
handy if somebody had an ability that could kind of
Climb.
make the metal brittle and rusty?
So
was
that we
this
couldn't be
before or
followed
after you-
practically?
We
After
want to
we've
get
gone down, to maybe
Yes.
stop people pursuing us.
so to make us not able to get out of the hole in the hill.
There's always
please,
four of us.
please refrain from doing that unless it is absolutely necessary.
So look, I need to know, Theophilus, you have the candle. Are you going to go
Yeah.
first?
I mean, Max is already in the hole, right?
Well, Max was looking down into this shaft when you arrived.
Titus will scramble forward, eager to pursue, and will
This
say,
is-
"Oh,
this
I
is-
can climb in a jiffy if you would like, sirs."
We'll just back off, Titus.
No, I know.
Max, do you want to be first down this hole, followed by Theophilus and a light? Or Theophilus, do you want to go first? And do either of you want Titus to go first?
What do you say, Theophilus? Would
I
you like
would-
to go first?
I would like to go first. It's my candle after all.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
Then I shall
and-
follow.
And so Theophilus and the candle descend into the depths.
Because I'm frustrated and I want to find something now.
Okay. Followed by Max. Titus, despite his but it's a hollow space underground. Oh.
It was mostly a concern for Theo and Max, who has just dropped out of a thing. Mainly.
Yeah. His bruising is no more harmful than your bad back.
Well, and I have a climbing ability, so it
Oh,
seemed
so
the
you
natural
do,
place
so
for
you
it,
do.
you know?
Oh, well, you might be able to climb out with corroded bits of metal. Who knows?
Mm.
And Tobias, that leaves you bringing up the rear, I think.
Yes. Can I use my iron spike to set some kind of trap at the bottom of this this metal, or can I actually use it more as a lever to try and pull some of these off the wall?
I mean, what you could do is you might be able to use it to, when you pull the trap door down on top
To
of you,
wedge it.
to secure it.
Yes,
I think that's a worthwhile try.
I will do that.
Okay, well, we'll worry about the effectiveness of that if I need to, yeah. But right now,
Yeah.
your spike is securing this trapdoor, so hopefully no one will be able to follow you. That's the theory. So Theophilus, down you go. One hand gripping your candle, one hand on the rung. Down you go. Always a bit nervous when you have to let go with one hand and grab the next one, and so down you go.
I went up and down bell towers. I'm
Oh.
fine.
Yeah. And I think as we see the candle disappearing in the darkness and the trapdoor shutting on top of Tobias, and we hear the kind of tap, tap, tap as Tobias secures the trapdoor. At 2 minutes to the hour, I think we'll take a break.
Yes.
Back at 5 past the hour?
Yes.
I'll see you then. Okay, back from our final break. So yes, down you go, Theophilus, and you follow this down using the candle to look below you. And you think that you've gone down, gosh, probably 30 feet or so. So what, 10 meters, more than that. And finally, you come down into a dusty space, and the candle illuminates a room, a bizarre room. There are paintings mounted on the wall. It's an old brick-lined deep cellar of some kind. But there are portraits on the wall, and there's a table set with a place setting at it. And I think as you kind of step into the room, Max will come into the room behind you. What do you do, Theophilus? You're first in.
Okay. Paintings. Paintings?
Of a nautical nature. They appear to show, there are 3 of them, and they all show what is clearly under a kind of rime of dust. They each show the same man in a variety of nautical poses, on the quarterdeck with a hand on the wheel, on a headland looking out to sea. The same man of a nautical nature. Max, while Theophilus is looking at the portraits, what are you doing?
I'm looking for absolutely anything that looks interesting or unusual.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
besides the 3 paintings on the wall of this sub-cellar.
There's a table with a place setting for one, and there's a tapestry on the wall.
What is the tapestry?
It shows a ship in a kind of gale. So there are tapestry waves with a tapestry sailing ship. By this time, Titus, you've arrived at the bottom of the ladder, the rungs. What do we see you doing?
I look to see if there's any other way out of this room than this entrance that we've come up. You know, any like cracks, holes, etc.
Simpler than that. The tapestry. When you come down, and maybe as Theophilus is moving around with the candle, maybe it just illuminates the side of the tapestry, and you can see that there is a space beyond the tapestry.
Right.
By which time Tobias will be down in this deep cellar room. What of Tobias?
The signs of witchcraft are strong here.
In the form of a single place setting on the table and a range of nautical memorabilia.
This man is clearly idolatrous.
It would. Now, I'm not sure that you've ever seen, I think we established that you've never seen Humphrey Gilbert, Tobias, but you do remember that the boat, his ship was called HMS Squirrel. And when you examine the tapestry, you will see that the sailing ship in the tapestry is indeed HMS Squirrel. Right? But Titus has found that behind the tapestry is a passageway. Been a long time since I described a dungeon, guys.
I lead on through the passageway.
Into the darkness.
Yes, yeah.
Desperate to explore the hollow hills. Theophilus, do you follow him with a candle, or do you want to stay in this room?
Is there anything that might be book formed, bookish?
And I think that given what you're looking for, I think it's not unreasonable. As you've gone around looking at these pictures on the wall, nailed to the wall, you're looking behind to see if they hide anything, and there's nothing there.
Damn, they're also too big and too heavy just to carry them around with you.
You could perhaps cut them out of the frame, but yeah, they are too heavy.
Okay, I mean, I'll take a knife from the place setting on the table I mean, they're probably worth something, right?
Uh,
And just in passing.
Well,
And
why don't you add to your other incidentals picked up in passing a silver knife?
silver knife, nice. Okay. And then I will follow because
And so first of all, you kind of just pull this off the wall down to get it on the floor. Then you cut one of the pictures out of the frame, or are you just
No.
taking the knife?
I'm just taking the knife and
Okay.
just in passing.
Settle
because
for the knife. Do you pick up the spoon that was part of the place setting as well?
I don't want to. No, I don't want the others to see that
Okay, so you just
because I'm a man of God, you know.
Of course you
and,
are. Of course you are.
Appearances.
So Theophilus steals something. Tobias, do you follow Titus or do you wait for Theophilus and the candle?
Can I hear anything upstairs?
That's a good question. I don't think you can. 30 feet up, maybe you can hear a banging as though somebody's banging on a door, but no more than that.
Is Herr Slater already in the darkness?
I don't think so. I think I was about to ask Tobias whether he was waiting for Theophilus and the candle or following Titus into the darkness.
I'm concerned about the noise upstairs in the ladder, so I'll look to Herr Slater for guidance on that.
Tobias?
Well,
Max thinks he can hear banging, but you know, there's a wedged door and a dresser between you and that.
I think we've just bought ourselves time, Herr Schwartz. That is all. If they are intent in coming down here, they will eventually get here. So either we need to stay in front of them, bar their passage forever, or flee, as in, you know, stay in front of them. I think that is our only options.
What are you going to do, Max?
So your assessment of the situation is that we either stay in front of them or stay in front of them.
Yes.
It's only a question of how
either we
far.
stop them permanently coming down here, or we know they'll come down here, and therefore we have to move at some speed to stay in front of them. If we want to bide time, we've got to stop them permanently coming down here.
Which would also block our escape this way.
Possibly.
Let me go back to Theophilus, because while this conversation is going on at the foot of the ladder, you've pocketed the silver knife. And now I need to know whether you're going to stay here and listen to the conversation or follow Titus into the darkness.
I'll follow Titus into the darkness. I'm still a bit frustrated and standing here and debating these guys. That's the first time I hear about guys up there. I don't know that they're dangerous or anything. They probably are. But still, I'm a little curious. Okay, I admit it.
That's true. Nobody told you that there were people surrounding the house.
Right. I don't know who they are. They Max and Tobias will take care of that problem, and I'll follow Titus because he can't possibly see anything in there. Of course, Tobias and Max won't see anything in here, but that's not exactly my problem.
Titus, you asked me earlier about tradecraft, and you're quite right. We should have decided which kind of tradecraft Mr. Garland was going to gift you for this expedition. Let's just take a little bit of time out and just sort out what this is going to be. Is it going to be access, conspiracy, kit, magic, system, vigilance? Titus, what's your opening bid, since you raised it?
I mean, currently I'm thinking kits, lanterns, you know. I find it hard to think because it's so dependent upon what you actually end up facing, right?
I know, and but it's not the kind of game, I think, where you can flash back
yeah,
to say, aha.
Yeah. I'm
unless that's the
I
way
have
we
no
want
strong
to play it.
Yeah, I have no, on that basis, I have no strong feelings. If someone has another idea, I'm happy to go with that.
Okay, let's work our way along. Tobias, what's your thinking?
I quite like magic.
Okay, well, we've still got the scroll of true sight.
Yes, I think. I think the opposite of the scroll of true sight. I'm thinking
Well,
An
remember,
illusion.
you don't need to describe it till you use it. You just have to say, is it magic or not? So we got one bid for kit on the grounds that you might need light. You got one bid for magic. Theophilus, what about you?
I mean, I've got light. Sorry. I mean, there's some sort of connection thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right,
There's
That might be actually be useful if we just know one of these guys and we could say, hey, we're
that
his
that
name's
would
so-
probably that would either be system or conspiracy, depending on
Right.
the nature. You know, if they are part of the legal system of the state, then system would be useful. If they are from the dark side, then conspiracy might be more
conspiracy. I'd like conspiracy.
appropriate. Okay, Max, what about you? Do you have a bid?
You know, I like both the idea of them getting down there and realizing, oh no, we're one of you, as well as being able to just hide ourselves so they can't see us. So I am between conspiracy and magic, and I am equally interested in both ideas. How about that?
I will bid for conspiracy, just because we've already done magic, so it'll be
Okay.
interesting to do a different one. But last time I would have said magic's the easy one because you can always think of a reason to use magic, right? So it'd be interesting to do something else.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add conspiracy to Theophilus's sheet, just because we'll work our way across. And we can define what form that takes at the point we use it. But as I think it says something like, somewhere it says conspiracy. Somewhere, well, in the note it says something about conspiracy. Represents agency and action in relation to diverse powers and groups focused on obscure tracts. Blah 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 blah. Okay.
Like papism, one might think.
For instance. So Titus, when you went through here, the tapestry fell back and you were in complete darkness, except that there is some light filtering from the ceiling. It looks like there's a hole in the ceiling and there is some dim light. Only because it's so dark do you notice it.
How far above me is the ceiling?
I would have thought, given it's a dungeon corridor, it's 10 feet high. No, it's an Elizabethan tunnel. It's about 6 feet high.
Yeah, I could probably. Is it a hole? Is it a grate? Is it?
Do you want to walk up to it in the dark?
I walk up to it in the dark, peering up at it. Yeah.
Okay, as you peer up at it, would you roll me a physical challenge, please? Because the reason there's a hole in the ceiling is that part of the ceiling has collapsed. And will you trip on the various bits and bobs?
Okay. I don't think any of my things apply to that. It's just a D6.
I think it is.
As a 2.
You trip and fall, and you gain the consequence barked shins.
It's not looking well for Titus.
As you and fall over.
Which is when the silhouette of candlelight from
exactly. That's
Theo
when the candle comes
yeah.
through and we illuminate you sprawled on a pile of debris. It's, it no way blocks the tunnel ahead, but it does provide an obstacle. Tobias, have you and Max made a decision about whether you're following them through there? Because it's suddenly gone dark in this room.
Well, we do love a good debate, myself and Spart. So, pondering with the chin.
And then
but I will suggest we need to be at some speed with this, Spart.
I concur. Let us be on our way.
Fine. So as the tapestry falls black and you just see a slight sliver of light from beyond it, you navigate to follow Theophilus rather than stay here in an entirely dark basement room. Theophilus, there is Titus sprawled. The hole in the ceiling is probably big enough to get a head through, but not big enough to get some shoulders through. Sprawled, Titus is sprawled on the ground, but he's fallen on something. Something metal or metallic.
Titus, hi. Are you injured badly? Because I can get Max to kind of give you tea or something?
No, I'll be fine. What is this? What
I don't
metal?
know. I don't
Uh,
know. Look, I'm bringing the candle. Let's look at maybe another trapdoor or something.
Yeah, I roll off it with a groan as my bed back.
It looks like a crushed small silver bird cage.
Interesting.
It may have been in better condition before Titus fell on it.
Bird cage. That's interesting. Was there a bird in there?
Do you want to examine it, Theophilus?
Sure. Sure.
I think I would like you to face a supernatural challenge.
Fair
But
enough.
I-
I'm using one of my candles.
You are using a candle, but you also have occult law. So you get 1 up from D4 to D6 because I've decided I should limit your steps up.
Thank you. Yes. Let's see. It likes the 2, so it's a 2.
No.
Wait. Wait. I have this fortune thingy. I can
Aha!
re-roll that. I can re-roll that. I will.
Mark fortune and re-roll.
It's a 5. Ha.
That's more like it.
Ah.
Inscribed around the base are what would this? I describe them as scratched glyphs or symbols. And I think that supernatural test and occult law tells you that those are wards. They warded something that was held inside this cage.
Okay. Interesting.
How reassuring is that, Theophilus?
But I hope whatever it was, Titus crushed it. Maybe, but probably the cage was crushed by the cave-in, right? Not by Titus.
It is difficult to say whether this was hanging in the ceiling and came down with the debris, or whether it came through. Looking at it, for it to have fallen through that hole would not have been easy because the hole is literally big enough to kind of put a head through maybe.
So it's like the ceiling fell in.
The ceiling
with this
fell
attached
in,
to
with
it.
this attached, I think is probably
Yeah.
the better. And that may well have initially bent it out of shape, and then Titus simply kind of.
Have you heard the saying, Mr. Clark? How many angels could dance on the head of a pin? Well, how many angels could fit inside such a small cage?
I will not bore you with the theological answer to that, my friend, because it is long, complicated, and it says all of them is the answer. If
Tobias.
angels would engage in such a frivolous pastime as dancing, I might add.
Tobias, as you and Max come through the tapestry and see this scene illuminated, you can hear voices. Just in the pause in Titus and Theophilus's yabbering, you hear voices from above through that hole.
Quiet, gentlemen. There's voices above.
And they're too far away. Because sound echoes down here. They're too far away to be certain what you're hearing. But it sounds like when I said voices, it could well be one person talking to themselves. It's difficult to tell.
Mr. Frost, to your feet. Let me propel you upwards. Have a look through the hole.
Gasp of agony as he. No, Mister.
You claim to be a nimble man. Let us see it.
Okay, let me. Oh, the aches and pains. Yeah, well, but who cares what is above us?
Von Badback.
We need to find the book. It must lay down these tunnels. Above us is simply the house.
Oh, remember, you've come down 30 feet.
Oh, so this would be below the house, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. Lift me up, and I will try and climb. I'll try and use my shovel to bash through the thing.
I'm not going to make you a kind of roll for just taking a leg up and having a look. If you want to start extending the hole, then that would become a different question. So do you
Take a
just
look.
kind of get lifted up so you?
Yeah.
And yes, there is. You can see there is some light emanating from about 20 yards away, I guess. And you can see what could be a shadow moving, causing that light to flicker. But it's kind of round a corner out of sight, so you can't really see the detail. But that is where this voice or voices are coming from.
Any sign of witchcraft, Mr. Frost?
No, but I hear voices.
Maybe you are a witch. Execute him.
Theophilus, I get the feeling you may have picked up the silver birdcage.
Yes, I have, definitely.
Max, you've come into the corridor. You can see Tobias lifting Titus up, and Theophilus with this crushed small birdcage. What do you do?
Is there anything else visible in the room?
Well, it's a passageway, and it goes on beyond where this ceiling has fallen in. And with Theophilus with the candle, it goes out of sight. It goes at least 10 or 15 feet on, beyond the edge of the candlelight, beyond this kind of low mound of rubble on the ground.
So there's nothing else there's nothing else noteworthy besides the bird cage and the hole in the ceiling?
And the rubble on the ground that Titus fell over.
Does it look like there's anything in the rubble or under the rubble?
You could search the rubble while Tobias is lifting Frost up. And I have to say, it just looks like rubble. You can kick most of it apart. It's not a big pile of rubble. Titus just tripped on it, really. So Titus, you've seen that. But what you also notice, Titus, is a trail of blood running from the hole where your head is in the direction of that light and those voices. Would you roll unraveling, please?
Sure, that is a D8.
That is a D8.
That is a 3.
Then you do not unravel. And then,
when Herr Slater says, witches, I look at the blood and I say, maybe.
So what I'm seeing is Tobias then letting Titus down so you can share this information. You have a choice. You could try to work your way through that hole, though it would take some effort.
And it'd be rather loud as well, I imagine, right?
It would, because though it's collapsed, when you put your head through it, you kind of got to hear. So it's not just a thin layer of earth you'd be going through. Or you could carry on down this corridor, this passageway, where you could perhaps get two abreast.
I mean, there must be conceivably a way to get up there without going through the broken floor.
Yes, my vote is press on.
Mm-hmm.
Theophilus, do you lead with the candle?
If nobody convinces me that we should absolutely break through the ceiling, then I will.
And I guess that it smells musty and enclosed, musty and dusty and dank down here as you make your way along. The passageway continues, guided by Theophilus's lamp, for perhaps, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 paces, and then kind of snakes this way and that, to the point where you're getting turned around a little, perhaps. But then there are some steep stairs going up, Theophilus.
I have navigation. What do I think where we get out?
Ha ha ha. Navigation, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have, I think that's an trying to keep track of, I turned this way, I turned that way, I turned this way, I turned that way.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have you roll a D8.
Okay, and navigation.
And navigation makes it D10, and I will say no more.
You said it already. I'm going to roll a 2. No, I rolled a 10. Amazing.
There you go.
I rolled a 10. Do I get anything extra for rolling a 10?
Sadly not. Sadly not.
Experience.
So you're trying to work out, okay, we came into the kitchen, that's at the back of the house. You think that you are heading away from the village, and by now you are probably perhaps 30 or 40 yards beyond the back of the house. That's
Okay.
your best estimate.
Mhm. Okay, but we are definitely beyond the house itself.
Oh yes, oh yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Definitely.
Good to know.
And Tobias, you kind of scouted out the garden from the front and then went round the back of the house, didn't you? Tobias? Yeah. So and all your recollection is at the back of the house there was, you know, a kitchen garden and then just fields and stuff is all your recollection.
And a well.
And a well, indeed a well, indeed a well. Well. Stairs go up, and as you go up, Theophilus, then Titus, then Max, are you bringing up the rear, or do you let Tobias do that?
I feel like we should have a rear guard.
And that a gentleman is always the best rear guard.
It's certainly someone with a sword is the best rear guard,
Indeed
as opposed
so.
to an old man with a staff.
Indeed, and not even a very long staff. So Theophilus, you and then Titus and then Max and then Tobias, there's a distinctly acrid, smoky odor as you come up these stairs. It's almost as though you're coming up into a layer of this kind of acrid smell.
I would like to use my supernatural ability to see if I can detect what kind of odor it is, and I would like to use herbalism to see if there's any kind of herbalist elements to it.
That turns that D8 into a D10, and I will say no more about that either.
That is my D10. That's a 1.
That's a 1. It's a really unpleasant smell, I have to tell you, Max, as you kind of go, let me see what I can make of this. And what I'm going to say is that I'm going to inflict a consequence of you, and the consequence is
hold up.
Oh, go on.
As Sabine graciously mentioned in chat, the fortune die.
The fortune die. Tick the fortune box. Re-roll the dice.
Alrighty, where is the fortune box?
It's way up the top beneath your supernatural D8.
Okay, got it. Alrighty. You know what? Just because.
Oh,
okay, there's a 10.
There you go. There you go. So with that 10, you would identify this as alchemical rather than herbal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a kind of slightly kind of burning oil feel at the back of your throat. The kind of oil perhaps that is used in lubricants of these newfangled metal devices. People are beginning to experiment with clockwork, for instance.
And
actually, you know, Max, now you come to concentrate, you can hear a kind of
like a ticking sound almost.
Do you know, it could be a ticking sound. Having shared that, Theophilus, you have the candle. But as you come round the top of the corner, because these stairs go up quite steeply and go around a corner, as you come round the final corner before you enter a corridor again or a passageway again, there is flickering light, as if at the top of the stairs and round that corner, there is a flickering candle.
Like mine.
Can't be as good as yours, obviously.
True.
But of a similar kind.
Okay. I feel we should press on, because running and hiding seems. I draw my cutlass. I have one, so.
Yeah, it was an unlikely choice for a friar, but I did notice that you had a
Dr.
well-notched
D
cut.
said, take this, or Mr. Garland said, take this. It will be useful to you in your journeys. And I said,
So
well, God
candle in one
provides.
hand, well-notched cutlass in the other hand, and round the corner you go. Yes?
Yes.
Turn the corner, the passageway opens into a space in which there is a glittering candle, a flickering candle on the side of a table. Sitting between you and that, no, hang on, I got that wrong. There's a large table with what looks to be a variety of broken glassware.
Oh.
What do you do, Max, as you come round the corner behind Theophilus? Because I think you probably came up to take a good smell. Max?
Sorry about that. So following up behind, and what do we see?
You see a table with a candle, which is, I would say, flickering, but actually guttering is beginning. It's burning. It's burned down quite a long way, and it appears to be in the middle of a set of broken glassware of all kinds, perhaps fitting the alchemical hint that you got.
As if something was broken.
Certainly a lot of this glassware is broken.
I would like to use my intellect to try to figure out if this was some sort of warning system that was sprung by us opening the trapdoor.
Okay. What are you thinking of using to do that? Intellectual?
Intellect. I don't feel like this is supernatural. I feel like this is more mechanisms, that sort of thing.
Okay. So I'm struggling to see anything that's going to get that above a D6.
I don't think I have anything that'll get that
Fine.
above a D6.
D6 it is then.
I'm just going to roll a new one. Nope, still a 2.
That'll teach you.
Have you used your fortune yet? Okay.
I just used
Just did.
Yeah.
So as you are contemplating this, a rat falls from the ceiling onto your shoulder, and suddenly it's raining rats.
Hallelujah.
What do you all do as these rats, which appear to have just emerged from some cracks in the wall? Tobias, what's your reaction to rats?
Cutlass time. Rat kebab.
And now that you notice, Titus, you can see that, you know, that blood trail you spotted when you looked up into the corridor. There is also a blood trail on this passage floor, and the rats are falling past you. It's almost like they're drawn to that blood and they are lapping at it.
Well, good, as long as they're not drawn to me.
It was a nasty shock when they dropped onto Max's shoulder, which I think, Max, is probably a call for an unraveling. So roll a D8.
I don't mind rats so much, but falling from above is somewhat
Nasty
annoying.
shock. Nasty shock.
That's a 2?
Yeah. So unraveling goes down to D6, and we get to use the unraveling table. So roll me a D8 for the immediate effect.
D8. All right. That's a 6.
Yellow bile. Character fills with bitter rage towards all allies while in the presence of the source of fear. So as long as these rats are about, you think this is all somebody else's fault.
So how is this any different from normal?
Yes, yeah. Your good nature, which has just kept you quiet for 10 minutes, has just washed away. Would you roll any dice? And I'm interested, odd or even. You would like it to be even.
Any, well, I mean, in that case, I'm going to have to roll D8 because it's been even all day. That's a 6.
Oh, fine. So you don't falter. But you're just, annoyed with people. How have they managed to get you into this stupid situation? Why did they attract these bloody rats? And now let's have a look at the ongoing consequence using a D6, please.
And why on earth did they go into this godforsaken pit anyway? Who led them there? All right, that's a 2. Again.
Oh, this is familiar. You are crabbed. Take the consequence, crabbed, prone to sharp changes in emotional state, short-tempered, sharp and loud.
Again, how is this different from normal?
Exactly. It just, your best efforts to suppress that has just gone out the window. So that, yeah, they're dropping on, there's a maybe a missing brick or a cracked brick, and these rats are just coming out of this and falling onto the ground.
I have an idea. Tell me if that is possible. I have the ability, the angelic thingy, favor of the angels, coalesce. Can I coalesce this blood trail that is attracting the rats into a kind of a bubble and then drown the rats within this thing?
Okay. I don't think you're dealing with a bubble. I think you're dealing with blood droplets.
Mm-hmm.
So you could coalesce it,
mm-hmm.
and that would perhaps allow you to collect it and keep it away from the rats.
I mean, I don't much care. I just wanted to use it as a weapon against the rats.
You could gather the rats.
I could gather the rats, right? I'm just gathering the rats. I mean, somewhere preferably far away from us on the other side of the room or something.
So let's do that. You simply mark it and it happens. How
nice.
So do you dip a corner of your robe in the blood and use that to attract the rats, or is this simply the power of mind?
I think this is simply the power of prayer. I will tell these rats that we are clearly satanic creatures, right? Right. I will draw out my cross and tell these rats, get thee behind me, Satan. Flee from the power of Jesus Christ. Demonic creatures, gather hence where you will not disturb us anymore.
That's fine. So that causes the rats. Several of them have already lapped at the blood, but the others who drop through just sit there looking at you, transfixed by this preaching. Titus, I think I need to know what you're doing at this point.
Well, there was a candle at that table previously.
There
wasn't
was.
There? Can I have taken that candle with me?
You can walk ahead and pick up that candle.
Yes.
Tobias, what about you? Because in the passageway, Theophilus is commanding rats. Max is just rassen dick dastardly under his breath. Tobias, what about you?
Well, I was skewering rats.
That's right. Most of them have stopped before they got to the blood and are looking at Theophilus. So I take it it's the 2 or 3 that were lapping at the blood.
Yeah, I just think the ones that are, yes. Come here, Admiral Whiskers. Your time is up.
Thwack. Okay. As you approach these, as you kind of step in to do this, you notice that the rats begin to change. Would you roll unraveling, please, Tobias?
Witchcraft. An 8.
An 8. So you do not unravel. All is well with the world. But they are changing physically. It's as though they are twisting and bloating.
Well, hopefully before they get to a larger size, run them through.
Fine.
Yeah.
Let's have you slice at the nearest one. A physical task, I think.
Yep.
With a cutlass.
And the rusty pitted cutlass. So that goes up to a D10.
It does.
5. Success.
Success. They only have 1 hit. And when you slice through it, It explodes, spattering you with its blood.
Gore. Oh, well, this reminds me of butchering a man.
Theophilus, the rats, before they got to the blood, are happily sitting there just looking up at you and your candle. Do you want to break the spell, or do you want to just hold them?
I mean, have we looked at that room where we're in? Because
Titus has walked into the room and picked up the candlestick. That's all.
Good. Okay, that's then maybe just stay here, let the others do their thing. That maybe Tobias slaughter some more rats. That seems like a fine thing to do because right now they're transfixed. So
they are. The ones that didn't get to the blood transfixed, the 2 or 3 that got to the blood are transforming. Max, you see them transforming. You see Tobias slice at one and it simply bursts. What do you do, Max?
Tobias seems to be enjoying himself. Far be it from me to deprive him of such enjoyment. I'm curious about the rats that are transfixed.
Well, they're just sitting there in front of Theophilus looking up while Theophilus holds their gaze.
It may be that Theophilus actually was a witch.
Well, you heard Theophilus pray loudly.
I'm still praying. I'm still praying at them.
It still could be a spell.
So what do you do, Max?
I want to look at the room.
Okay, so you follow Titus into the room. Fine. Tobias, the 2 rats that you haven't yet killed throw themselves at you. What do you do? Tobias?
Sorry. Yeah, well, I would like to start running these guys through as well.
Fine, let's have you attack another round.
That is the only thing to do.
Let's have you
attack another round. Witchcraft.
Go for it. I'm going to give you a step down on the basis that there are 2 of them coming at you, right? So it'd be a physical task, D8 to D10 because of your cutlass, down to D8 again, okay?
5.
5. Again, one of them leaps at you and you cut it in half. Blood spatters you and the walls beside you. Perhaps a drop passes over Theophilus's shoulder as Theophilus continues to pray. Titus, you've picked up that candlestick. With what intent?
Well, there's passageway beyond, isn't there?
There is. There is a passage beyond this.
Carry on down the passageway.
Walking away up this corridor,
up
this passageway. Max, you've gone into the room behind Titus. He's taken the candle with him, so you're dealing with slightly less good light in here, but the table is cluttered with broken and other pieces of alchemical glassware. What do you do?
I'm a man of science. I'd like to discern what was being done with these alchemical reagents.
Given that I've already hinted that something unnatural was going on with these alchemical reagents, do you want to use supernatural or intellectual?
Let's use supernatural this time, just for fun.
Fine. And do you know, I'm going to give you a step up on the grounds of mediumship.
Goodness gracious, this is probably worse than I thought. And I usually think things are pretty bad. All right. That's a 4 on D10.
That whatever was being made here is about somehow capturing or maintaining a spirit.
I curse. Not even under my breath. I just curse. Probably fairly loudly, probably loudly enough that Herr Slater can hear me in the other room, slaughtering while he slaughters rats.
And Theophilus, the rats are still, as long as you hold their concentration, you hold their line of sight, they will sit there for you. But as you can hear Theophilus behind you. Theophilus, Tobias, the last one, leaps at you, tries to scurry up your boot leg. What are you going to do? Oh, you are muted, so it's probably just as well I can't hear you.
Yeah, as long as it's not my inside leg, I don't mind.
Let's see where
so
that
we're back
goes.
to the D10 because there's only one of them.
There is.
A 4. Success.
And again, you are spattered with this blood. The blood is splattered on the walls. I suppose the only thing that's crossing your mind is if Theophilus stops concentrating on those rats and they start drinking, lapping at the blood, this might transform more of them.
True. So I will say the blood seems to transform them into some evil beasts of Satan. We must deal with the rats en masse.
So Theophilus, are you prepared to have Tobias slaughter these helpless rats at your feet?
Of course I am. These are rats. They are vermin. They are not creatures of God here.
Fine. Then as Titus heads off into the darkness, as Herr Schwartz looks at the alchemical works and says, there is the work of the devil here. Tobias slaughters some rats while Theophilus slightly averts his eyes, having transfixed them. That, I think, is where we will pause and roll credits. Okay, thank you for that. Let's have a quick stars and wishes, shall we? Let me go left to right. Let me start with Will. Any stars?
Yeah, it's nice to have Sabine back. Someone
Always
sane.
nice to have Sabine back.
Yes, but someone slightly more. I feel it's already brought a more measured temperament to the group, having not these two huge polarizing forces on either side. And yeah, also been really useful in terms of like having good conversation skills and a candle, and being a klepto as well is really interesting to me.
Yeah, that was a side of Theophilus that I hadn't seen until today, particularly.
But I really liked Paul's use of his Angel's favor as well, and Herr Schwartz just doomed to be crabbed no matter what. It's one of my favorite.
Even when he's
parts.
trying to be nice.
And I have to say, probably my biggest star is, what are you doing in here? Lady, I'm a herbalist.
Don't mess with me. I'm
Yeah.
a herbalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any wishes for next time?
I don't know. Perhaps a way to use that conspiracy tradecraft in an interesting way, but so much of this is just finding out what the hell's going on, frankly, and
Yes.
poking around until you do.
Yeah, it feels a bit like that to me. It seems, pretty old school. Let's move along to Sabine. Any stars?
Yeah, lots of stars to everyone because this was a lot of fun. I loved all the characters. I loved Max's continuing crabbiness, even if it wasn't a condition. I loved Titus's I will storm in as the first one. Oh, no, I'm not. I don't have a light, damn. And I love Tobias cutting out pictures of books. Why does he do that? But okay, it's surely part of his character. I like that, and I like the whole thing where we go wander through this dungeony house and find things and fight rats. That was fun. Yeah.
Wishes for next time? I suppose last time.
Yeah, I wish that the dice room was a bit nicer. Just a tiny little,
We've had this conversation before, Sabine. Shall I let you create a dice room for next time?
No. I'm just growling, complaining. I'm old enough to complain now.
You're allowed. You're allowed. Okay, moving along. Paul, any stars?
Yeah, some really great play around the table. The use by Sabine of the candle, I think, was sort of quite instrumental. So a great pick there, Sabine, and bringing the interpersonal skills. Clearly, my character lacks. Puckett, it's sort of now evolved into rather than sort of direct conflict between the two of us to more of a sort of debating society on various points, and I think that's a good evolution. Although I do miss, last week's manic unraveling of both of us, which worked so well. I sort of missed that a little bit.
Early days, Paul.
True, and Will, he always brings a good, reasoned head to the table, and he's also, one of the first people to always jump in and assist. And he'll run with most people's plans, so that's really nice to see. There, wishes, a lot more unraveling. Really, I think that's where this game wins. Much more unraveling.
We want more unraveling. Okay. And finally, Puckett, any stars?
Stars all around, always. I agree with Paul. I agree with you. I like the evolution. I do think it works better with like a slightly harsher debating society. And I'm looking forward to things unraveling. I'm looking forward to Titus trying to save people. I'm looking forward to Tobias trying to burn all the witches. I'm looking forward to watching Theophilus steal things. I mean, again, this is a side that I don't think any of us really knew. I mean, I don't think we saw it in the abandoned, well, not quite abandoned manner. But
And you didn't look very hard.
well, I mean, in fairness, we did have a gang of ruffians and then an actual literal ghost to cope with. So we were a little preoccupied and not paying particular attention to the silver. But I like it. The thieving friar? I mean, what a great concept.
Yeah, it's a terribly Friar Tuck, I thought. Slightly outlawy Friar.
The Lord provides to he who is willing to dirty his hands, I guess.
To he who's willing to steal other people's stuff. Yes, I remember that prayer. Isn't that Psalm 28? Sorry, Puckett, I interrupted.
Oh, no problem. No problem whatsoever. I do like Titus being willing to charge ahead. And I Tobias laying into the rats with a cutlass. I mean, that was grisly. And I do kind of like rats, but at the same time, the thought of somebody going after rats with a sword and like slashing at them, that was just too good. Just
very
because
elegant, I thought. Very elegant.
Well, I mean, elegant would be if you're doing it with like a rapier or something like that, and you were like actually skewering them as opposed to just kind of like swatting at them with a sword that's basically like hitting them with a club. But still, I had a lot of fun with this session. I do wish the dice room had been kinder. On my to-do list is to say, John, what the literal hell? I mean, seriously, how many successes did we roll in this session?
I think some of you rolled more than others.
I mean, I feel like we could count them on one hand. The dice room was not kind to us today. So my wish for next time is a kinder dice room.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I will create a new one. We'll have a fresh dice room next time. Okay.
Oh, no, you don't need to do that. I'm just saying I just hope it's nicer to us because.
Okay. So you are devolving to prayer and sympathetic magic then.
Actually, I'm going to curse it and I'm going to engage in some black magic, which will, of course, bring me to the attention of Mr. John D, Dr. John D.
Okay. So, stars for me, yes, the thieving friar. I like that. I like Tobias. Well, I'll kill the rats then. There was I thinking, how are they going to collect the blood? But no, just kill the rats. Titus, a chance to get to the front of the queue, get your own candle and step into the Hollow Hills. And Max, yeah, if anybody had to get the crabbed condition consequence, it was going to be Max, wasn't it? Suppressed it for a little while, bubbled back to the top. So thank you for that, folks. I am still thinking about last time's wish, which is to make some connection between this and what happened at that farmhouse. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I've got there yet, but we will try to knit it together in some way. And now I will stop the recording.